Hey there, and welcome back to the Speak to Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Trucks. I'm excited to bring to you today a conversation with Ilka Lander. Now, Ilka's been a client for a long time, and she's a great speaker, great heart, great person. But cool thing is she got this weird, awesome background of life. She's gone through so many different things, from everything in law enforcement to ballerina to business owner to just crazy cool things. And as we unpack the story today, you're going to hear about how she's gone through her own journey, but also one that you can navigate in terms of understanding how to be able to extract from your life a great message to bring to the world as a speaker. So without further ado, let's hop into the episode. Welcome back to the Speak to Freedom podcast. I'm your host, obviously, Anthony Trucks. We're here with Ilka Lander, who is an awesome human, and she's accomplished a lot of cool things. And I think that's the fun part for me to talk to people who've done some things outside of my realm. Like I don't know how to do what she does, and she could run circles around me, right? But that's the cool part about life is you do that, and then in the world of what we function in, is we try to take all that and go back and go, how can I package this up to be beneficial to people beyond myself? And so we're going to unpack that with Ilka. Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah,
Good.
I think I'm like the definition of diversity when it comes to having done lots of different careers and stuff, and also really very different from you. So it's strange those circles don't intersect, but at the same time, I definitely, when I first saw your stuff on the internet, or I don't even remember where I saw it, I definitely could relate to a lot of those things. Maybe it's some of the personal common denominators like the twins and you know, that kind of stuff. So
possibly a whole bunch of, obviously none of us are or unique, right? But like all my experience of life are not only, secluded to my life experience. So it is cool when you have people from different walks of life who've walked similar paths in life. It's always kind of a cool thing. Let's do this, because I always want to have people who are listening go, all right, I understand who this person is and why I should pay attention to listen to them. And so obviously you're a speaker, you're a coach, you consult as well. And obviously you're in hospitality, you do a lot of cool things. Can you outline for us, if someone was to walk up and go, hey, what do you do and what do you speak about? What would you say?
What do I speak about and what I do? Kind of different things, because one evolved into the other. What I did for so long, for so many years, at a certain point didn't become fulfilling enough. And I got to the point as an entrepreneur that I wanted to impact people on a deeper level. So you mentioned I'm in hospitality and have been for 25 years. And so on a more superficial level, I help people relax and unplug and, deal with stress in life and do all those things. And, it became really superficial and just not enough for me. And so I crave different ways. And we do philanthropic things in our hospitality business too, and do volunteer and put on races and stuff like that. But I just felt like the people that we were, and I say it we because it was me and my husband running this business, if we could help the people that we were back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and help them get through those challenges as an entrepreneur, small business owner, man, that would be so great. And I really didn't know what my message was. I was really kind of, I'm a Jill of all trades, or so to speak. I've done a lot of different things. I have a lot of competencies because I've had to either teach myself or that I really enjoy. And so I didn't really know what my superpower was. And I think that was one of the things that attracted me to your program, was that ability to really define what my personal niche was based on my experience and my competency, and how that translated into a really concise message, which ended up being how to fortify your future. So helping people build their inner armory so that they can dominate challenges and modern day battles. So
I like it. It's very well said. Let's do this, because I want to know where we come to this like part of life, right? Because I love that. Obviously, we worked together and done this all. But I want people who don't know who you are to hear the life you've went through, so they go, oh, I see why that's her message, right? Because the message is always one thing that can be, honestly, anybody can have that, but the story is what makes it unique to you. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, it's a lifelong story. So it's one that starts with me moving, 4 different countries. I've moved 16 different times, even within those countries until I was in my mid 30s. I never lived anywhere more than 1 year. So I've had to adapt, pivot, deal with the challenges of identity, with different cultures, different countries, different languages. When I moved to the United States, I didn't speak English. I only spoke Portuguese. Yeah, because I'm born and raised in Rio de Janeiro, but my family is all from Belgium. So my parents spoke Dutch to me. I spoke Portuguese to them. And then fast forward, I guess, 15 years or so. And then I have a sister who speaks Spanish because we lived in Venezuela at the time. So friends would come over and be like, what is happening here? Like,
Yeah, it's a
my
lot.
parents spoke Dutch. I answered in English, but I spoke Spanish to my little sister, and they were like, oh. So I dealt with identity things early on. And then, yeah, and then I was a classically trained ballerina since for about 15 years, and I did it semi-professionally. I danced with the national company in Venezuela. And so it's not what I did. Like, I think in America, they do it as a extra curricular activity for kids. I didn't. I did it as a competitive gymnast would do it 7 days a week. Maybe Christmas off, 3, 4 hours each day. We had weigh-ins, we had performances, we collaborated with companies. So when I got to be in my early 20s, I was like, okay, this isn't enough. Like, this can't be all that I'm made to do here. And I started the world of personal development, and I was like, yep, I got to do something more. So it's a shift in identity. And for a lot of people looking out, I went from ballerina to law enforcement for 10 years to I had a martial arts school. Then I became a massage therapist. I've been a massage therapist for 16 years. And so the people in those worlds, when they look at the other parts, they're like,
Yeah, what's going
how
on?
did
It's a whole
that
lot of different
happen?
things. So how'd you navigate all the different shifts of it all then, right? Because to be honest, most people go, okay, I'm doing this one thing. This is what I'm good at. I'm going to stay doing this because I don't want to try something new, not be good at it possibly, and have to feel the emotions of that. Like, how did you go through the journey of like, all right, ballerina, like that's done. Next thing, that's done. Next thing, that's done. How do you jump from, I guess, thing to thing without losing a piece of yourself, or well, I guess without even having fear to do so?
I definitely had fear all
Mm,
along the way, but I was able to navigate and like transition in the uncomfortable blocks. I feel like you have different seasons of life, and in the middle is those really uncomfortable, difficult transitions from one to the other. And I
yeah,
just always wanted to do better and push myself more. And so I would keep the things that I liked about what I was doing, and I would get rid of the stuff that I didn't. So even though from the outside it looks very different, there is a common thread in all of it along the way. Like, I joke a lot now in my hospitality industry when I talk to people is I'm still dealing with human beings. They're just happier to see me now than they used to be. So, but I'm still talking to them, trying to understand where they're coming from, what their needs are, what their intention is. Same thing when I was a police officer. I was a detective, and I dealt with the criminal element, but there's definitely a lot of common denominators.
yeah. So you put all these things together, and they've obviously come forth to create a cool message and a concept in it. How did you had to navigate? Because I know, like your story, I do know the one that you haven't shared yet, which is you and the twins and the business and all that kind of stuff. I think those are. I definitely would love to hear a little bit about how that journey like unfolded for you, because obviously those things led you to the point you're here now, right? And I don't want everybody to go like, oh, it was always easy. She did this and then jumped to this, and it was great, and she did this and it was great, and it was every step was so easy, right? Do you mind sharing some of like the harder times you had to battle through? Because I think that's really where, if we're talking about fortifying your future, like you definitely fortified your future in those hard moments.
Yeah. So you want me to talk about the twin story before I
Yeah, all
had
the
them?
fun stuff. Yeah,
Okay.
there were the little
Yeah.
parts there.
Yeah. It was definitely one of the pinnacle moments in my life because when I jump into the next thing, I put everything in it. I
Yeah.
don't really always have a plan B. I just do it. I sold everything I had. I left a very successful career in law enforcement where I had a really amazing reputation, and I did defensive tactics, lots of things. And I bought this dilapidated cabin rental business, put everything I had every hour. I came up with my boyfriend at the time. I wasn't even married to him. We were like, let's go. And we did that day in and day out for 8 years. We really worked our butts off, doing everything from, cleaning to marketing and advertising, everything. Yeah. So, and at a certain point, you as an entrepreneur, you question like, how far do I go when it gets tough and you don't have, the money? I always say stealing from Peter to pay Paul to make sure you're trying to keep going. When do you quit? And we just didn't have a quit attitude. And so at a certain point in 08, 9, 10, most people remember that time. It was just kind of chaos in the world, in the financial industry. There was so much nutty things happening. And the bank that we had our loan with, they went under.
Okay.
And yeah, we had been in the process of, we had bought a 8.5 acre property with 6 cabin rentals on it. And we were in the process of subdividing them, restructuring our business so we could sell them individually and be property management and still run the resort. And the bank went under, another bank bought it. And within another 30 days, a third bank bought it. And when they came in, they had us already written off as a liability. And so they said, I'm so sorry, you can't subdivide your property. You're going to have to keep it as is or sell it, which was never.
Did they say why?
I think that just at that time, they had a lot of foreclosures and losses in their books. And so certain pieces, they just weren't going to negotiate. Like, I mean, literally the first bank was called the Bank of Blairsville. So a small town bank.
Yeah.
I knew everybody by name. So yeah, they decided that was it. And the timing was horrible because we had been trying for about 6 years to get pregnant again. And I got pregnant with twins. So I was so happy. I got a 2-for-1 special then.
There you go. I did that too.
Yeah. And so it was the happiest moments. And then at the same time, the bank decided to call in the loan, which was $1 million.
Yeah.
And I didn't have it. So we had to file personal bankruptcy. We had to sell all the contents of the cabin rentals. And I live in a small town of 30,000 people. I really coveted my reputation. I had been involved in the community. And I think the shame and the sense of failure was as much, if not greater than the loss of the money of it. Because
I can get that.
It was what I had built. What is still today is important to me, how I show up and how people perceive me. So yeah, that was devastating. And I was hugely pregnant, so I couldn't participate even in the dissembling of that. And then we, I think it was like the 5th of July, we turned the keys back in. The process took a little bit longer, but a week later, my twins were born on July 15th. So there I was. I had 6 cabins left, so I had barely a part-time job. My husband didn't have a job. It was, we had two more kids. We already had the 1 6-year-old. We had to file personal bankruptcy. So the only thing I kept in my name was my van, and I had to go on food stamps. It was crazy for me. Like I come from, I come from a family who built I was raised as an affluent person. I lived in South America. My dad made American dollars. So I was, I didn't go without. He built it from zero, but it was very weird and very difficult to deal with. But I knew then, like, I had to figure out what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, how not to hook my identity and who I was to this business that I also sunk everything into. Like, How do you do that? And that's how I started unpacking the process of, because it literally felt like being in a wind tunnel. Like
Never
you
figure
don't
it all
even
out.
know what to do, how to respond, what to,
Yeah.
not to walk around with your head hung in shame, and how do you move forward and what do you need to do? And so I'd never wish it on anybody in their lives,
But
but
it's benefit.
I'm so grateful that I went through it.
Yeah, which is a big piece of it. I think without those moments, you don't have to muster up the energy or the push to find out what you need to do. Right? There's always the idea that we grow, but if you're doing growth without direction, without clarity, then you're just kind of doing things which may not even be beneficial to you. But if you're forced to have to be better in some space because life kicks your butt, it's better. And I got almost to the point of having to turn keys in. I was very close to it, so I do recall like what I had to do to dig deep just to get up every day to go like still put the effort and energy in when people rely upon me and then they know I'm failing. It sucks. And then you do develop, and so I like the idea of your message being around like that fortify yourself in the sense of like fortifying for your future, because for a lot of us we don't realize the future is the only thing we know for sure, like it's coming then tomorrow, right? And if I don't prepare for it or prep or battle now to be able to navigate for that later, then I just think you run into it and you miss opportunities, you fall short of potential. So how
Yeah.
does somebody fortify? Like that's obviously the realm of work you do. If someone
Yeah.
comes up and goes, man, it sounds great, I'm having hardships right now, Ilka, I don't know how to do this. How does someone do the fortification the way you're talking about?
Yeah. Well, that was the first. And what ended up happening is since then, there were many before I didn't really recognize and maybe weren't to that extreme. But since then, I've had many others, including COVID and in the process, that were similar. But I learned that lesson and how to get out of it there. And that first thing is, like I said, that wind tunnel is breaking the patterns, is like breaking the patterns of where you are now. And there's many ways you do that, but part of it is physiologically, the stress, that fight or flight that you're in, that reptilian brain that's activated that you need to, that served us at one time, long time ago, but now most of us don't need that. And so how to snap out of that through, gratitude, through meditation, through exercise, through a lot of things that we're familiar with in wellness, but also the mental state, how to snap out of the instinctual response and figure out what's important, why it's important, and lay a plan. What am I going to do? How am I going to live that life of confidence, courage, and conviction that I want, and design the life that I want? The life where everything I do is aligned with my values and my goals. And so that's like the foundational piece. If you get nothing else, that's it.
How does
That's
somebody
the
do
big
that
one.
when they have no idea what to do? Because I would probably venture to say that's something people heard before, your values and and what you'd like. How do you align with it? And you should do work. Is there a way you can shortcut that process? Because here's what I know. I know there's certain things that I have dreams, aspirations, right? I'm in a space where I've learned to carve my own path and go against the grain, but I don't think some people have disconnected from the thoughts of what judgments might come. If I do this, how are they going to view me? Or am I going to get ostracized? Is the tribe going to kick me out? How does somebody go with doing that? Like, or actually figure out like, what are their values? Like what should they align with? Because sometimes it's also borrowed from family and you don't even have your own. Hey there, welcome to our brief little hiatus here in the middle of the episode. If you're a person looking to be a speaker, maybe you have a desire to bring a message to the world, but also maybe in a place where you've been speaking for a while, but you want to be able to reach more income in terms of accessing higher budgets, or maybe you just want to be able to do more speeches, but you're trying to find a way to get great at getting on the stage, I want to invite you to join me at Speak to Freedom. You can go and check out speaktofreedom.com to get all the information on the program, but everything that we do, it teaches you to be able to build from the ground up an amazing speaking business. So hit that link. Go join, see what we do. Love to work with you in the future. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, that's true. It's spending time with yourself. I think you need to unpack, I mentioned before, I started personal development when I was 19 because I had a coworker who we worked in hospitality while I went through college, and things just rolled off her back. Like people, life around her, everybody has somebody like that around them. And you look at them, you're like, man, they're like the cool cucumber, right? They're just Nothing bothers them. And I said, I want what she has. I want that. I want to figure out how I can do that because everything triggered me. I was 19 and I was, spitfire. And I started personal development. And that's, I think, where it begins is self-awareness and looking at, I know that the word values and alignment is kind of a trendy and kitschy now, but it is really unpacking that. I've done some stuff with Brene Brown, and it's about really figuring out what are those, like breaking down and spending the time figuring out what are those 2 or 3 words, those values that govern all the decisions you make. What are they? For me, it's freedom, authenticity. Huh?
How would somebody get those? Because that's the kind of what I want to figure out. Because I know I have my way of doing it, right? How would somebody unpack that? Is it admiring people doing something you like to do? Is it you exploring just what your heart's drawn towards? What does that process look like?
I think the process. Gosh, that's a good question. It's
Yeah, I don't know the answer either.
yeah. There's no one answer for it. I think that's why it never ends either. Like, I feel like I've been able to unpack a lot of that, but I'm always learning more of, even in this process of becoming a speaker and helping others and coaching and doing workshops. I am defining the things that are important to me in that process and how I can deliver that. And maybe it's not always one-on-one, or maybe it's not serving all leaders, but just women. And, it's because of what it means, what's important to me. So I think it's an ongoing path, a journey, but it definitely has to be your compass. Like, if you don't have one and you are basing it on other people or validation from others, or you're never gonna even get out of that first phase. Those challenges are just gonna be reactive and not proactive.
That makes sense. So you got to find some unique ways of finding out what to work on. And that's going to be different for everybody, walks of life, which you have access to. Let's say somebody figures it out, though, like they got an idea of what they need to do. What's the next step?
Is to build the skill set and the mindset. So if you figure out, okay, this is where I'm going, this is what's important to me, this is my goal. Now, what do you need to get there? What does that look like? And part of that is the skill set. So if it's financial optics, relationship therapy, I'm not opposed, to therapy for that, whatever that takes. But then the other big key component is your mindset, is training yourself to believe that you can not just survive hard things, but thrive through them. And so I regularly preach and do myself challenges, and both mental and physical, that I think I may not be able to accomplish, that I think are really hard, and I probably will fail, but I won't die. So I'm going to do that. And I do them at least one a year. And so what happens is I succeed or I fail. Those are the only 2 things. But in that process, I realized I didn't die. I made it through. I gained the experience that I survived something hard. So like this year, I've done Mammoth March. It's a 20-mile race. I'm doing a 25K in the mountains in the end of October. They're not always physical, though. So here's another one. On August 1st, I decided I was going to do a full year with no alcohol. So an alcohol-free lifestyle. So alcohol isn't my affliction. I'm not an alcoholic, and I don't propone this for people who are. But if you're trying to unpack of who you are and why you respond to things in certain ways, removing some of your regular coping mechanisms is a good way to test it. And so for me, that was one of the things. This is how I was raised with a Western European family. We use wine and port and stuff to celebrate, to socialize, and to cope, which I think most of America does too. So for me, it'll be a challenge psychologically to go through the holidays, I think I'll end the year going on a cruise to Portugal and Spain, which is because that's like Bordeaux, France. I'm going to be in, I'm not going to drink wine.
That's crazy. I
It
did the same
is.
thing. A few years back, my wife and I decided we just don't not going to drink alcohol anymore. Same. I didn't have a reason. I wasn't like drinking every. I don't know if I drink almost ever. I've never been a really big drinker, but there is like you stick yourself in a position where it's just doing something new. But after a while, it actually becomes more of who you are to do that thing or not do that thing, and then it's just you've adjusted your lifestyle to where it fits, and it's without stress to an extent or much less stress. So we've done that. Now what happens, right? I figured out what I got to do. I start doing these things you're talking about, which is honestly implementing new habits, new actions, trying to create new patterns, new flows, and hopefully the long run, that's going to be beneficial. What happens like the final step of this whole process, which is going to be the more enduring piece, I believe.
Yeah, it's the battle. Battle is the final phase of fortifying your future. It's when you have to take action, because we've all done things, read books, gone to workshops, done the thing where it was, enlightening, or you got a golden nugget or something, and then you come back and you put that book up on the shelf and you never look at it again, or you don't implement it in your life, or you don't. So taking action, um, is really important. It's one of the final things. Going to battle, fighting for what you want, fighting for that life that you want to design for yourself. Doing it consistently. We live in a world where that instant gratification is pumped to us everywhere, constantly, and so most people stop, stop. Well before they get even close to it. So that consistency and showing up day in and day out without seeing the results, and I tell people, I'm like, you don't go to the gym for 10 hours and hope to lose 30 pounds. It doesn't happen that way. You go to the gym for, 10 minutes or 10, or 20 minutes every day for 10 months, and then you'll see something. It's
Yeah,
gradual, it's
a little
compounding,
bit of yeah,
little bit at a
yeah,
time. It's what
exactly.
you
And
talk
then
about.
yeah, it's the dark work, but eventually I think eventually gets to the point where it's like you don't even pay attention to the fact that you're doing it. It's in the beginning, there's so much mental energy given to this new thing. It's like riding a bike. You gotta pay attention to my feet placement and handlebars and the balance. And after a while, you could be riding a bike throwing a newspaper and you're not even paying attention to what used to be so mentally consuming. I think that's for me the experience of how identities shift or how we talk about these things. It's like you try something new. There's a lot of mental energy trying to figure it out and pay attention. After a while, it becomes like the second nature instinctual flow, and then it's not even hard to do it. And then it's almost
Yeah.
as easy as before you did it, but your outcomes in life are much better.
It's the shifting from the conscious mind and doing that, like I said, the energy into your subconscious, where it just becomes. It's like at night, you brush your teeth before you go to bed. If something happens and you're not able to, or you forget, it's a sense. I tell it to my kids all the time too. Like, when you take a glass out of the cabinet, you just close it. Like, that's what you do. You don't, when you're little, I watch my son empty the dishwasher, and then I look up and every single cabinet door is open and the
Yeah,
drawers are out. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, close the gap,
yeah,
finish the
I get it.
task, get it done. Moving it from, so in the beginning he's like, oh, my mom's gonna yell at me if I don't close the cabinets, and then it's
Yeah,
automatic. It's how it becomes automatic by repetition. So it's the consistency, taking the actions and being consistent, and then getting uncomfortable. I think we live in a world where comfort, there's nothing wrong with some of it, but the comfortable spaces where people like to sit, and pushing yourself to get into an uncomfortable place challenges you, and it comes full circle then.
yeah. Basically, you have to figure out what you got in you, or at least try
Mhm.
to find new ways to wield the different tools you have, and just you get more creative. I think in that space, which is it is I think a necessity for life because at some point we're going to need to try things that give us information we can use later on in this thing we won't even I have an idea about right now. Like I know it's coming 5 years from now, but something I'm doing now is preparing me for that. As long as I stay in the pocket and keep doing stuff.
Keep doing things that make you uncomfortable and push you to be different, to step out of what you're used to and your routine and your things. And that's part of the process that you go through when you challenge yourself artificially, or you create, not organically, but yeah, artificially, circumstances that push you in that way. Um, you get prepared. When I look at, like, when I was in law enforcement, we did so much training and so much simulation work, and we would put on an officer survival workshop. It was several days where we would put people under high stress situations and then make them execute really fundamental things. Some of them were even putting the lid of a pen on, because your small finger dexterity goes when you're in fight or flight or under that kind of stress. You can't write your name. You can't put the lid. Yeah, when you really are under high levels of stress like that, you can't. And so when they practice that way, when we used to make those training sessions where we, created artificially that stress and then made them perform, a lot of times we would be on the range, and officers under high stress, heart pumping, we'd make them run, do push-ups, do all this stuff. They'd drop their mag and they'd grab something like their capstan, trying to stick it into the bottom of their firearm without realizing. They were like, oh, because they're in that primal brain and not processing it. So putting yourself into those situations when it was, life or death in that kind of industry or in that job that I did, but it's part of our lives now too. I was on my way this summer to a couple different speeches that I had set up, and they were right before I was going on this cruise that my dad had planned, 16 family members. I'm juggling the plans for that because I'm the mom, doing all those things, getting ready for those talks, plus running my business. I had somebody call in sick, of course, the day that my driver is supposed to pick us up from my house to bring me to the airport. And I'm like, I got this. I got 4 hours. I can pack. I can run, work the front desk. I'll be ready. I get in my car, my driveway, just like the last 15 years, I hit it in reverse. I go back. I go, I swing all the way left. And then all of a sudden, boom, I T-boned my husband's brand new BMW M3.
That's fun. I'm sure you loved that.
So the worst part was I heard nothing. I saw nothing. I didn't see the alarm in my car. When I hit the driver shift, bumped into manual, I couldn't bump it back. I couldn't put it in park. I couldn't pull away. I was literally in the full primal fight or flight brain. I just froze completely.
Yeah.
So I got out, and he watched me from the house.
You watched it all go down, yeah. Yeah.
It was terrible. He came out, and I just looked like I was just in shock, and I looked at it. And then I was still in survival mode because as a wife, within a couple of minutes, I thought, why did you park your car there?
I think it was his fault.
But I didn't say anything. So survival brain worked for me.
This is good. I've had fun unpacking all this stuff with you. And obviously you speak and you coach. It's all a fun thing. If people want to get more information and get more insight to see you, work with you in the future, where would I send them?
Probably my website, landercompany.com. I'm on social media. I do put content out regularly there. But email is probably still the traditional and the way I communicate best with everybody. I do challenges because I believe in the power of doing different challenges. So I periodically do. And coming up in another 2 months, I'll be launching the 4th time my Finish Strong challenges, which is the last 60 days of the year, where we do 5 critical tasks to end the year strong, so that by the time 2025 comes around, everybody's already hit the ground running, and we're not starting to do, New Year's resolutions and all that malarkey. So yeah, email is probably the best way.
I dig it. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. Honestly, enjoy you having a chance to come on here, break it all down. I love the kinds of what you do. I think that a lot of people, they're in space of life that need help like you deliver. And it's good to have someone that's gone through the journey, still going through the journey, to be able to come in and provide insights and kind of conversations. Those you guys who are still tuned in, thank you for hanging out with us. Make sure you go and check out all the stuff she does. Because truthfully, if you're here right now, you're like, man, this is a cool person. Go explore what this person can do for you. To be quite honest, that's why we do what we do as coaches and individuals, as speakers, is to go share our message, share our knowledge. So when you want to come consume it or get more of it, we love that. If you have not yet, make sure to go to speaktofreedom.com to find out about the coaching program that we have that allows individuals to build their speaking businesses, which is a blast for all of us. Outside of that, thank you again, Ilka.
Thank you,
for tuning in.
Anthony.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure. And we'll see you in the next episode. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Speak to Freedom podcast. I hope you found our discussion inspiring and informative. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated on all our future releases, be sure to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for tuning in today. Until next time, remember to speak with confidence and clarity so you can one day soon speak to freedom. See you in the next episode.